students, today our class is about growth, and there we will learn basic concept of growth, growth promoting factors, growth spark, metabolic action of GH or growth hormone, relation between growth hormone and IGF-1, that is insulin-like growth factor 1, then growth promoting action of growth hormone as well as insulin-like growth factor 1, regulation of growth hormone, regulation of secretion of growth hormone, and lastly apply. So let's start with basic concept of growth. In growing children, protein synthesis occurs under the influence of growth hormone, and thereby body is getting enlarged. Now we commonly use a term instead of growth, that is weight gain. But actually growth and weight gain, these two terms are not similar. Okay, because we can merely gain our weight with addition of some adipose tissue in terms of obesity or by retention of water, but then there is no proper structural growth. And for proper structural growth, there should be or must be protein synthesis must be present there in terms of bone growth and soft tissue proliferation. So for proper structural growth, protein synthesis is must. Okay, and that is why weight gain and growth, these two terms are not similar. Now, regarding growth hormone, as the name implies, its main action is or its main actions are multiple growth promoting actions. But other than growth hormone, there are multiple other factors present which determine the growth of an individual person. First one is genetic factors. It is genetic factors which actually determine the maximum growth capacity of an individual. Then comes adequate diet. The genetically determined maximum growth capacity is only achieved by a person if adequate diet along with some other favorable factors are present. And this adequate diet is extremely important in early years of our life, especially initial 2 years, because at that time there is a very huge amount of body growth as well as 70% of brain growth occurs at initial 2 years. So adequate diet is extremely important in initial 2 years, and if a person is deprived of that nutrition in these earlier years, that will lead to irreversible stunting of growth. On the other hand, adequate diet is needed for maximum growth capacity. If we take more diet or more nutrition than this adequate one, then that will lead to obesity, but that will not help in growth. Okay. Then a person must be free from chronic disease and stressful condition. Only then proper growth achievement is possible. Otherwise, the prolonged stress or exposure to prolonged stress will lead to secretion of cortisol, and cortisol has multiple anti-growth effects like protein breakdown, like it inhibits the secretion of growth hormone, it causes stunting of bone growth, and so a person has to be free of stress and prolonged chronic diseases, so he or she can achieve proper growth. Other than these three factors, there are also some important hormones which play their part in growth. They are thyroid hormone, insulin hormone, and very importantly, sex steroids. Okay, so for growth hormone is needed, but other than that, genetic factor, adequate diet, environment free of stress, and other important hormones are also necessary for proper growth. Now, growth is actually not a continuous process, and the growth promoting factors, they can't maintain or they don't maintain a constant level throughout our lifetime. There are certain phases in our life where growth rate is very much high. These phases are known as growth spurt or the phases of growth spurt. Now there are mainly two types of growth: antenatal growth and postnatal growth. Antenatal growth is actually fetal growth. Growth hormone as such does not play any role in fetal growth. Fetal growth is mainly operated by placental hormones, and other than that, genetic factor, nutritional factor, environmental factor also play their role for proper fetal growth. Regarding postnatal growth, one occurs at initial 2 years of life and another during puberty. So, growth spurt occur in initial 2 years of life and then at puberty. In between, the growth rate is quite slow. That is from 2 years to 10 to 12 years. The growth rate is very much slow. Though a person maintains their growth and they increases or they become taller with few inches, but growth rate as such is very slow. Now what happens in the puberty? Puberty begins in case of girls at around 11 years and in case of boys at around 13 years. What happened there? GH hormone increase their concentration, and as well as the sex steroids are also play a very important role. Now in boys, the most potent androgen is testosterone, and testosterone is responsible for the growth surge, or it makes the boys taller along with development of secondary sexual characters. Whereas in girls, the height increase of girls are mainly regulated by less potent adrenal androgen. And as these adrenal androgens are less potent than testosterone and they maintain the height of girls, that is why girls are generally a bit shorter than boys. And the secondary sexual character in girls are mainly developed with the help of estrogen. Estrogen also causes ossification of epiphyseal plate. So their termination of growth is also a bit earlier than in comparison with boys. So if we draw a graph, this percentage of growth, and this is here, it is like that. If it's like that, then the growth spurt is like this. Up to 2 years, their growth rate is very high. Then it becomes low, slow, and at around 11 years, again the surge starts. Okay, so it will be like this. Though growth rate is very slow, but actually it's increasing like this. Okay, it's not a straight line. It's increasing very slowly. So, in initial 2 years, the growth spurt is there, and at puberty. Now, as the name implies, growth hormone main actions are growth promoting action. But before going there, we will discuss some other factors or some other function of growth hormone, like metabolic function. This growth hormone is responsible for breaking down of fatty tissue and thereby increases fatty acid within blood, and it will increase glucose output from liver. It also inhibits glucose uptake by muscle. So by this two action, you can see that as a whole, glucose level in blood is increased, and with this fatty acid in blood again is increased. Increased fatty acid and increased glucose. This effect is extremely useful in some special condition, just like starvation. Because in starvation, body is already deprived of glucose, and then they causes increased glucose level in blood. Again, there is another fuel, that is fatty acid, and muscle just start to use fatty acid, sparing the glucose for only glucose dependent organ like brain. So as it increases the level of fatty acid, so the fatty acids are available for muscle to be used, and glucose are spared only for brain, because brain only can use glucose and it can't store glucose as a form of glycogen. So thereby it gives a protective action. Muscle will use fatty acid and glucose is spared for brain. And regarding protein synthesis, it increases protein synthesis if amino acids are available. Then under the influence of growth hormone, protein synthesis occurs. And another function of growth hormone is growth promoting action, and it promotes growth both directly and indirectly. Directly we will discuss later, and now indirectly. How indirectly? We have already know that GH, when acts over liver, it secreted IGF-1 or insulin-like growth factor 1. It is also called as, or also known as, somatomedin. Now as it is 1, next question is what about 2? Yes, there is insulin-like growth factor 2, but that plays not a very important role in our postnatal life. They are mainly related with fetal growth. So here we will discuss only about IGF-1. So IGF-1 is secreted not only from liver, from many other tissues also. But when it's secreted from liver, it mixes with blood, and it can exert its action by autocrine, paracrine as well as endocrinal way. It's so named because it's structurally and functionally very much similar to that of insulin. Its mechanism of action is also similar to the insulin. It also uses the receptor enzyme and acts via phosphorylation of tyrosine residue, which we have discussed in our mechanism of action class. Now coming to IGF-1. As I have said, it is secreted not only from liver but also from many other tissues, and when it is secreted from liver, it mixes directly into the blood. And when it is secreted from other tissue, it mainly exerts its action by paracrine way, and that explains another fact. Because you know that, or we have already discussed that, in our initial 2 years of life, growth hormone is low. Still, there is growth spurt. Some researchers believe that it is IGF-1 which produced from multiple tissues and act locally. This IGF-1 or the local production of IGF-1 plays some role for initial 2 years of growth spurt, though growth hormone is low at that particular time. Now obviously, as I have said, growth hormone regulates the secretion of IGF-1. But it is not only growth hormone which can regulate the synthesis of IGF-1. There are other factors too, like nutrition. For proper secretion of IGF-1, the person has to be well fed. Starvation causes decreased secretion of IGF-1. Now coming to puberty. At puberty, growth hormone increase is in moderate level, but there is rapid surge of IGF-1, and that obviously plays a part in pubertal growth spurt. And other than that, there are other hormones like testosterone, estrogen. They also help the IGF-1 secretion from local tissue like estrogen, like ovary and testes. So there are other hormones, puberty and nutrition other than GH, which can control the secretion of IGF-1. Now we already know that this growth hormone directly or growth hormone along with IGF-1 causes promotion of growth. That means both of them increases protein synthesis. So there is bone growth and there is soft tissue proliferation. In cellular level, there occurs hyperplasia and hypertrophy. Hyperplasia means cell increases in number and hypertrophy means cell increases in size. So the growth hormone and IGF-1 actually stimulate hyperplasia and inhibit apoptosis. Apoptosis means programmed cell death. So these two peptides actually increase hyperplasia and decrease apoptosis. Wherever there is hypertrophy, they promote hypertrophy and they inhibit all the procedure of protein degradation. Protein degradation. Okay, so now coming to bone growth. So before going to bone growth, we have to know a little bit structure of bone. As already you know, bones are mainly made up of cell and extracellular matrix. Extracellular matrix. Generally, bones contain three types of cells: osteoblast, osteoclast, and osteocyte. Osteoblast cells are mainly known for bone formation, whereas osteoclast causes bone resorption, and osteocytes are basically inactive cells. Okay. And regarding extracellular matrix, here collagen fiber lies within semi-solid gel and give it a rubbery consistency. Now the collagen, as it's embedded in the semi-solid gel and gives it a rubbery consistency, it actually provides bone with tensile strength so that they resist breakage when tension is applied. Again, the extracellular matrix, there is deposition of calcium phosphate, which makes a bone very hard and help to maintain its shape when compression is applied. Okay, so calcium phosphate actually gives the bone compressional strength and collagen gives it tensile strength. If there is only compressional strength but no tensile strength, then bone will be brittle, just like chalk, easy to break. Okay, and that is why there is an organic scaffolding which is hardened by deposition of calcium phosphate. Now regarding structure of bone, I think you have already know it. There is a shaft-like structure, that is diaphysis, and there is a flared knob-like structure or articulating knob-like structure which is known as epiphysis. In between, epiphyseal plate is there which contains multiple cartilaginous cell or chondrocyte. Now bone growth occurs both in terms of thickness and height, but the mechanism of action is bit different. So this is diaphysis, this is epiphysis, and this is epiphyseal plate. Now when bone starts, and in between there is bony cavity. Okay. Where bone marrow is there. So this part is cavity actually. Now what happens when bone growth occurs in thickness? The osteoblast cell starts to deposit bony material in the outer aspect or external surface of bone, like this. Osteoblast starts to deposit bony material in the external surface, but obviously within periosteum. Periosteum means the covering tissue sheath. Okay, osteoblast starts to deposit bony material in the external surface. So the circumference is getting larger, but along with this, at the same time or simultaneously, there occur osteoclast mediated resorption from the inner side, like this. So this part is dissolved. So osteoclast mediated resorption occurs from inner side, and osteoblast mediated bone formation or bony material deposition occurs in the external surface. So as a whole, the circumference of bone is increased and the bony cavity is also increased. So that is the mechanism of action regarding thickness or growth related to thickness. Now the mechanism of action is slightly different, or in case of bone lengthening. What happens there? But before going to that, we have to know about the arrangement of chondrocyte in the epiphyseal plate. Now see, this is diaphysis, this is epiphysis, and this is epiphyseal plate. The chondrocyte lying there, maintaining multiple levels. Okay, and the newer chondrocyte, they lies in the part facing epiphysis. Whereas the older chondrocyte lies near diaphysis. Okay, these are older chondrocyte and these are newer chondrocyte. Their size is big, their size are small and flattened. When growth promoting factors are there, the newer chondrocytes start to replicate and the older chondrocytes start to hypertrophy. Okay, so they increases in size and they start to replicate. So their numbers are increased. What happens? The older chondrocytes hypertrophy, whereas the newer chondrocyte starts to replicate. So see, there is a initial widening of epiphyseal plate because the older chondrocyte starts to be hypertrophied and newer one starts to replicate. So there is an initial widening of epiphyseal plate and it pushes the epiphysis away from the diaphysis. Got it? But this is only a temporary phenomenon because within diaphysis there are osteoblast and osteoclast cells. Within it, there are osteoblast and osteoclast cells. hypertrophied older cell reaches to a maximum point, the extracellular matrix surrounding them starts to calcify. The surrounding extracellular matrix of older cell starts to calcify, and the older chondrocytes don't have their own blood supply or capillary network. They are solely dependent upon the diffusion from extracellular matrix, and as now extracellular matrix is getting calcified, so they are severely deprived of nutrition and they eventually starts to die. And after their death, the osteoclast cell came and there occurs starting of osteoclastic resorption of this particular area. Okay, and after osteoclastic resorption, the osteoblast cell present within diaphysis now swarm up and starts to encroach the space. Okay, this starts to encroach the space. So what happens? Now the epiphyseal plate comes to its original size. And there is the lengthening of bone. Okay. So what happens? The newer chondrocytes present in the faces the epiphyseal end, and the older chondrocyte faces the diaphyseal end. When growth promoting factors are there, the newer chondrocytes starts to multiply and older chondrocyte is getting hypertrophy. But when they reaches into a limit or at the maximum limit, the extracellular matrix surrounding them starts to calcify. So they become severely deprived of nutrition because they are getting their nutrition via diffusion, which comes from this extracellular matrix. As they starts to calcify, so this hypertrophic cell being deprived of nutrition starts to die, and there occurs osteoclastic resorption. Following that, in that remnant, the osteoblast cells swarm up and they ultimately encroaches the area previously occupied by older chondrocyte, and thereby there occurs the lengthening of bone. And what happens with the mature bone? There even as osteoblast itself is responsible for production of extracellular matrix. In case of mature bone, surrounding the extracellular matrix surrounding the osteoblast cell starts to calcify, just like the chondrocyte starts to calcify. Even though the osteoblast cells don't die because they have their own canalicular system. Okay, so they can get their nutrition and they excrete all the excretory material. So they don't die, but they don't remain active in terms of bone formation too. They maintain an inactive state known as osteocyte, and then they take part in maintaining the calcium hemostasis or calcium homeostasis by exchange of calcium between blood and bone under the influence of parathyroid hormone. So that happens in case of non-growing mature bone, and bone widening and lengthening occurs in case of growing bone. Now what is the role of growth hormone and IGF-1 in this? Growth hormone and IGF-1 is responsible for multiplication of cartilaginous cells, as well as they causes or they promote the action of osteoblast. They actively take part in bone remodeling in later life. So what about the regulation of growth hormone? As we already know, there is anterior pituitary, and in anterior pituitary there is a particular area known as somatotrope, from which growth hormone is secreted. And this growth hormone, when acts over liver, it secretes IGF-1, and IGF-1 and growth hormone, growth has growth promoting action. Growth promoting action. Growth promoting action means increased protein synthesis in form of bone growth and soft tissue proliferation. GH does that with the help of IGF-1 and can act directly over this. Now GH also has some metabolic action like it increases free fatty acid, it increases glucose uptake from liver, and it decreases glucose output from liver, and it decreases glucose uptake by muscle. So GH causes the secretion of IGF-1 from liver. Now this area or this anterior pituitary is again regulated by hypothalamus. That also we have discussed in our previous class. Hypothalamus. But hypothalamus secretes two different kind of hormone. One is GHRH and one is GHIH or somatostatin. When GHRH acts over anterior pituitary, the stimulus is positive. When GHIH, or as the name implies, growth hormone inhibiting hormone, when it acts over anterior pituitary, the influence is negative. That means with GHRH there is acceleration of GH secretion, and with GHIH there is inhibition of GH secretion. Now we have already discussed much about negative feedback mechanism. When this IGF-1 level crosses the set point or rises so much that it increases and crosses the set point, it causes inhibition. Inhibition of secretion of GH, that means is inhibit anterior pituitary as well as it inhibit GHRH secretion or GHRH secretory or GHRH secreting neurosecretory neuron. But it stimulates GHIH neurosecretory neuron. Okay, so basically we can see that here that this IGF-1 stimulates the inhibitory one and inhibit the stimulatory influences. Okay, same is applied for GH or growth hormone. When growth hormone reaches to its maximum limit, it stimulates the inhibitory neuron and inhibit the stimulatory one. So as two types of hormones are released from hypothalamus whose action is just opposite, so with negative feedback control system here, the IGF-1 or GH actually inhibit all the stimulatory input and stimulate all the inhibitory input. Now there are multiple factors which regulate the secretion of hypothalamus. Those are as you can see, the growth hormone causes increased fatty acid. So if there is decreased fatty acid, so that will lead to secretion of hypothalamic hormone GHRH. Then it causes increased glucose output from liver. So if glucose level in blood is decreased, that is a positive influence for GH secretion or GHRH secretion. Now coming to some specific or special situation, just like exercise. In exercise, the energy demand is more, but the glucose content is limited. and in that time the muscle need some other nutrition, and GH can provide it in terms of free fatty acid, whereas the glucose is spared for brain. So in exercise like situation, the release of growth hormone is increased, and other than all this, if there is increased amino acid present in blood, the growth hormone secretion rises and protein synthesis occurs. And other than this, there is another mechanism or another regulatory system. We have discussed it, that is diurnal rhythm. Diurnal rhythm also present for growth hormone, and it actually fixes the set point upon which the negative feedback system operates. So what is the diurnal rhythm for growth hormone? Growth hormone maintains a very low level during daytime, and it starts to take its peak when a person is asleep, and its highest concentration reaches 1 hour after onset of deep sleep. Okay, and it's almost 5 times higher than the low daytime value. So these are the factors which actually regulate growth hormone secretion. Now as you can see that it causes increased fatty acid. So there is basically mobilization of fat, and it also helps in protein synthesis. So with the help of growth hormone, we can achieve a lean body which is more muscular and less fatty, because it causes fat degradation. So fatty tissue is dissolved and it causes protein synthesis. So more muscular body structure is achieved with the help of growth hormone. But even after knowing all this, there are multiple unknown domains related with this growth hormone. One is, we have already discussed that in initial 2 years, though growth hormone level is very low, still the growth spurt is there. Some researchers answered this question telling that it may be due to the local action of IGF-1 at the tissue level. So that question is partially answered. The another question is that the growth hormone concentration is maximum in our 20s and it starts to decline in the 40s. But even after that, a person starts to grow after reaching their puberty. So why so? Because the growth hormone is maximum in 20s. Okay. But we start to grow after our puberty, or almost start to grow, almost stop our growth in the age of 18 to 20. So what's the function of GH in that part other than the metabolic function? This question is also partially answered because there is ossification of the epiphyseal plate. So further bone lengthening is not possible. So further increase of height is also not possible. But still, even then, the growth hormone should be involved itself in soft tissue proliferation. But after reaching the age of 20, the soft tissue proliferation is also not that much. Some researchers think that it is due to the fact that the adult person, the deep sleep time or the deep sleep duration in an adult person is less in comparison in adult person is less if we comparison with the deep sleep time of children. And as in children, the deep sleep time is more and the growth hormone concentration rises during deep sleep. So that is probably a cause. So the children shows better growth spurt than the adult. But still, all the adults maintains or all the adults continue their deep sleep for some time. Even then, the growth hormone can't exert its full action in terms of growth. So these were the unknown domain. Now coming to the applied part. What happens when growth hormone secretion is high and what happens when growth hormone secretion is low? Low growth hormone secretion means hyposecretion. It may be primary, it may be secondary. Primary hyposecretion means when the pathology lies in the pituitary. And secondary means when the pathology lies inside other than pituitary, most commonly hypothalamus. What happens then? If the hyposecretion occurs before the closure of epiphyseal plate, that means before the ossification of epiphyseal plate, there will be a manifestation called dwarfism. Dwarfism means stunting of growth, poorly developed muscle, as protein synthesis is also hampered, and increased subcutaneous fat, as fat mobilization is also hampered. So all this lead to dwarfism. But dwarfism is practically a manifestation which may occur from due to other reasons too. Like that is why it is called pituitary dwarfism or pituitary dwarf. Other causes also is responsible for producing dwarfism, just like in case of hypothyroid or hypothyroidism, there is stunting of growth. Some socioeconomic factor also play a role, that is known as Kaspar-Hauser syndrome. If a children is exposed in a stressful condition for prolonged time, then there will be stunting of growth, and that is known as Kaspar-Hauser syndrome. Other than this, there is achondroplasia, where the stunting of growth occurs due to genetic defect. So all that lead to dwarfism, and here we are discussing about actually pituitary dwarf, which shows stunting of growth, poorly developed muscle and subcutaneous fat. Now that occurs due to decreased secretion of GH. Sometimes it happens that GH level is normal, but the abnormality is present in the receptor level. That will lead to another type of dwarfism known as Lannan dwarfism. Again, there is a situation where GH hormone or GH concentration is normal, receptors are also normal, but the defect present with the IGF secretion, and that will lead to a situation known as African pygmy. What happens there? The growth promoting action of IGF-1 and GH is severely hampered, but the metabolic actions are spared. So they are not particularly a fatty person, but the stunting of growth is there. Now what happens if the hyposecretion occurs after the closure of epiphyseal plate? So there will be no stunting because the maximum height is achieved already. But what happens then? Growth hormone is also necessary for maintenance of muscle mass as well as for bone remodeling. So in that condition, there will be muscle wasting, loose skin tissue, and bone density will be low. So a person is prone to develop fracture, and as there is muscle wasting, this procedure also may affect the cardiac muscle, and this person is more prone to develop heart failure. What happens in case of hypersecretion? Again, it may occur before ossification of epiphyseal plate or after ossification of epiphyseal plate. If it occurs before the ossification of epiphyseal plate, that means before the ossification of epiphyseal plate, if there is hypersecretion of growth hormone, that will lead to rise of height. Along with that, there will be soft tissue proliferation. All the aspect of growth is heightened with the hypersecretion before ossification. So though there is increase in height, but there is also increase in the soft tissue, so the body proportion will be maintained, and this situation is known as gigantism. If not treated, the person may gain or the person may achieve or reach to 8 to 9 feet of height. When the hypersecretion occurs after ossification, that means the person already achieved their maximum growth. Now the hypersecretion starts. So further increase of height is not possible. So bone will grow in terms of thickness, okay, and there will be soft tissue proliferation. So body will achieve a disproportionate figure. So there will be increased thickness of bone. The facial bone, the bones of extremity will be mostly affected, and there will be increased soft tissue proliferation. Skin tissue is also be proliferated. So there will be thickened facial bone as well as thickened toe and finger with enlarged hand and foot, and this condition is known as acromegaly. Acromegaly. Acro means extremity and megaly means large. So there are recommended certain indication where we can use synthetic growth hormone. Synthetic growth hormone. There are some indication which is FDA recommended. We can use synthetic GH in hyposecretion in children with hyposecretion of GH, or adults with hyposecretion of GH. As growth hormones are responsible for skin tissue proliferation, so we sometimes use it in burn patient to restoring their skin structure, and sometimes, so it's not FDA recommended, and sometimes we also use it in stunting of growth in children where the cause is unknown. So it's seen that the growth hormones are beneficial for them too. So as I have said already, that growth hormone or the maximum amount of growth hormone is released in our 20s, whereas it starts to decline when it reaches to 40s. And with this, the signs of aging starts. Signs of aging means muscle wasting, decreased bone density, loose skin or sagging of skin, increased subcutaneous fat, etc. So, with starting of aging, when growth hormone starts to decline, all this manifestation starts to appear, and we can reverse it with the help of synthetic GH. Synthetic GH. So previously, this growth hormone, the synthetic growth hormone, is used to restore all these conditions, and growth hormone was known as fountain of youth. Okay, but it has its own side effect or its own ill effects. If the synthetic GH is used for prolonged time and with a higher amount or higher dose, it may lead to development of diabetes mellitus, hypertension, carpal tunnel syndrome. As synthetic GH also can proliferate, thus also can stimulate cell multiplication. So that may lead to any malignant condition. So nowadays, its use is very much restricted and it is only used when indicated. Now there are also certain hormones which can promote both, like thyroid. Thyroid play a permissive action with growth hormone. For full action of growth hormone, the thyroid hormone must be present in adequate amount. Now insulin also helps in protein synthesis. We will learn about it in detail in our later classes. And there are sex steroids. we have already discussed about this. There are more potent androgen like testosterone present in the boys, and which is responsible for development of secondary sexual character as well as for increase in height in boys. And there is estrogen in female, which causes development of secondary sexual character, as well as, though initially it helps in lengthening of height, but ultimately it causes termination of bone lengthening by ossification of epiphyseal plate. And there is less potent adrenal androgen, which is also helpful for women. Now I will end this class just by discussing one topic, that is, there is significant height difference between boys and girls. Actually, before entering into the age of puberty, in respect to height and weight, boys and girls are not much different. But when puberty starts, things change. Why so? Actually, the pubertal age for boys are approximately 13 years, whereas in case of girls, it's 11 years. So we can see that the boys get 2 more years in prepubertal stage. So when they start their puberty, they are already feeling just taller than girls. Okay. Then puberty starts, and the pubertal changes in boys occur mostly under the influence of testosterone, which is a potent hormone, and it causes rapid surge of bone lengthening or rapid surge of growth in boys. So boys are getting taller, and in case of girls, there is estrogen, which is responsible for ossification of epiphyseal plate. So that what causes the stoppage of growth in girls. Other than these 3 factors, it's believed that during development, the androgen imprint male brain to maintain a masculine pattern of growth hormone secretion, where the cyclic peak of growth hormone is bit higher than the cyclic peak of growth hormone in girls. So as the secretory pattern is different and that is imprinted in male brain, that may lead to increased height in case of boys in comparison with girls. So this is all about the class. If you have any confusion regarding anything, just feel free to ask it in our group. Thank you.